Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. It's almost the 1st of July. I'm so excited. The farmers are out cutting their silage. I'm here enjoying the garden and I thought, what could be better than doing a little bit of a tour to show you what is currently growing on in the garden so you can see how it's going to transition and develop into summer when we get gluts of harvests. We're going to start with the first bed that you see when you come through the garden gate. Here I'm interplanting or doing a bit of a polyculture of annual herbs and annual flowers, mainly edible flowers. We've got the first borage flowers and we've got some pot marigolds growing. I'm really trying to utilise this kind of interplanting of annual herbs and annual flowers just to add some visual interest and to see how they perform together. I've also put in an amaranth, so fingers crossed that's going to turn out well. This wigwam here, I've got runner beans. I'm not doing any A-frames this year. I'm just sticking with a load of wigwams around the garden. I've interplanted some dill with this, got another amaranth, and then here, beetroot. These are bolt hardy beetroots and I've multi-sown them, and bolt hardy are by far the most consistent variety of beetroot that I grow. In fact, about a month ago this bed was completely empty, so it's really starting to fill up. And then we've got 5 rows of Swede that I've been through. These were direct sown using the direct sowing kind of process, which you can see a video up here. I've been through, thinned them, they're looking great. Then we've got some nigella just to add a little bit of colour as well. And then this is Perpetual Spinach that I'm not letting it grow to full size. I'm just constantly picking the largest of the leaves and adding them into meals. Then here, this is kind of a prime feature that a lot of you are getting really excited about. Had so many comments about it on the interplanting with runner beans video. This is a wigwam that is kind of more of an archway that my co-worker Sam built, and I absolutely love it. I think it's a real highlight of the garden. And the idea is we're going to be growing, you can already see that these runner beans are growing upwards, and we want this to kind of be covered with runner beans. We can pick them really nicely because they'll be dangling inwards, so harvesting is going to be easy, but also it's going to be quite fun because I might do some videos where I suddenly emerge from the runner bean structure. It's nice to add these elements in terms of space saving as well. If this was a wigwam, you could see the footprint. This whole pathway would be taking up vital kind of productive bed space, but instead by only focusing on the very edge of the bed, it means that we free up space to grow other things. So on my right I've got a load of dwarf beans here and potatoes, and on my left I'm starting, these are all the leek seedlings. I've got 4 or 5 different varieties of leeks, and you can see this bed behind me here is actually clear. I've kept this clear because I want to put in a load of brassicas, and they're about a couple of weeks away from that stage. Then I've got some more runner beans. This is kind of the sun trap of the garden. You can see we've got some hops, some roses, and then these are some spare dwarf beans that I've planted. Dwarf beans, broad beans. These are some spare broad beans that I planted, and they're already doing really well and podding at the base. Now with bigger plants like this, I don't actually bother weeding them underneath because they're developed to mature. The weeds aren't really going to cause much of an issue, and that's a nice thing not to worry about, to save some time. Then here we've got some Monge 2 that are growing. They're beautiful, kind of red, pink, purple, blue flowers. Not quite as good as sweet peas, but I think you can see where sweet peas come from. These are really starting to grow up this wigwam. This is one of my favourite parts of this year. I saw right in the corner of this bed there were some foxgloves. There's a plant or 2 and it's on its 2nd year. So foxgloves are biennials. They're wild flowers. They're absolutely rampant in this part of Wales. And they just look beautiful. And I thought I'm just going to leave them in their place and see what happens. And every time I come here, there are always bumblebees going in and out. And this kind of splash of colour I think makes it really special. This bed again is designated to brassicas. I've got a couple of squash plants in the front there Then we've planted 3 rows of Aztec broccoli, another thing that I've never grown before, and it looks really interesting. And then I'm probably gonna fill this up then with purple sprouting broccoli, but do something different at the end. So you can see that this is another Monge 2 that's growing. I'm just gonna move around this side. I want to try and adapt a similar thing to what I did in that other bed where I did an interplanting of annual flowers and annual herbs, but I'm just going to do a later one so I can compare how well that works in comparison to an earlier planting. And I just love being able to test and experiment different things so I can see what works best and what I can use then in future growing seasons to help make this garden more productive. One of the things that I love so much about growing food is actually leaving some plants in and to see how they flower or perform in the second year. A prime example are leeks. These are leek seed heads. They're basically like chai flowers but a lot bigger, and the bumblebees absolutely adore them. So what I'm really trying to do is, wherever possible, have reasons and have plants that are going to bring in pollinators, just to make kind of the garden feel more alive whenever I'm here. Now to my left I've got some Shetland black potatoes that I'm growing in this corner of the bed, and the rest of it are squash. So I've put in a load of squash plants right next to me here. This is a jack of all trades, so I'm going pumpkin, and the idea with this is it's going to spread down this pathway. I'm willing to sacrifice part of this pathway for it. I've also got various courgettes and winter squash. Now it's actually been ridiculously dry here in June. I can't actually remember if we've had any rain, perhaps a touch of drizzle, but it hasn't penetrated the ground. So I've planted these using the bowl method, and because they're new into the bed, it's really important that they get lots of water. Squash are really thirsty. So using the bowl method is a right blessing, because we know that when we're watering them, all of the water is getting soaked down into the roots and really helping them on. I just really hope that we're going to get a good soaking of rain some point soon. I can hardly believe it. We've just finished filming the tour of the garden, and I was saying how we've basically had no rain in June. Well, now it's changed. To my right here is our main garlic patch. There's around 140 plants of garlic here, and the leaves at the base are just starting to die off now, which is a good sign, because when you harvest garlic you want the bottom half of leaves to all be nice and dry, and it's going to be really great to pull these up. And then this space will be open to a succession plant with something else. So the garlic harvest I'm waiting for, because I really miss homegrown garlic. Then I've got summer cabbage, which is really starting to get into its stride now. Now the final thing here, these peas I grew for pea shoots. They're actually Hanover peas, so they're a Welsh variety. And I thought, well, I've had the pea shoots, let's just let them produce. They're also at the moment podding in the polycrub. They're absolutely delicious, and these are just a couple of weeks behind them, and I'm looking very much forward to even more peas. This is the main potato bed. I've got a row of Swift and then 2 rows of Morris pear, and these are looking amazing. The flowers are absolutely stunning. Unfortunately, they're just coming to the end, but it's a really nice kind of splash of purple and orange across this. I'm growing fewer potatoes directly in raised beds this year because I'm transitioning to trying to grow as much as possible in containers to free up extra bed space, because even though potatoes are productive, they do also take up a lot of bed space, where I could be growing things that are perhaps more valuable, because potatoes, let's face it, are pretty cheap to buy. And here, broad beans, these again are developing nicely at the base. It's really important to water any kind of bean when they're flowering, just to help them with fruit set. Now what I've noticed is that the black fly have just started attacking the very tips of the beans, so that's a sign for me to now start coming through and picking off the growing shoots, because the black fly are only interested in the young tips. It's a lot easier for them to get the sap. So I'm just going to come through, get all the shoots and any of the tops that are clear of black fly, I'm going to stick into a stir fry or lightly steam them or lightly cook them with some garlic and butter, just as a nice green to add to a meal. I've then got some direct sown radish. I've got some peas in front of me here that are looking amazing. Loads of flowers, loads of pods are setting, really exciting to see that. Then I've got some fennel. This first 2 rows of fennel were grown in modules, and then I did some direct sowing of fennel, and because it was so dry I actually forgot to firstly put a plank over them, and I forgot to water them as much. So they've been a little bit sporadic with the germination, serves me right, but I've plugged those gaps with a bit of extra beetroot because I don't mind. And then finally, just at the top, we've got another borage plant, just to add a bit of colour, and the flowers are an amazing addition to salads, and then 3 spare dwarf beans. At the start of the season, this was the salad bed where I grew all sorts of things like lettuce, spinach, radish. There's still some remnants. These lettuce here are doing really well. The spinach and lettuce in the front are now, they're going over, but I'm letting these grow for the flowers. The spinach flower heads an amazing structure actually in the garden, really striking. And then lettuce flowers are beautiful because they're like tiny little dandelions, but there's hundreds of them on every single plant. I then got just a row of spare onions, some more leeks, and then I've transplanted these dwarf beans. Now these are looking a little sad. The main leaves have kind of turned this weird white colour, but it doesn't look anything like powdery mildew. I'm wondering, when I planted them, they've just been stressed out by an excessive amount of sun because they were kind of in the partial shade, and I just moved them right out into a bright sunny position. But what they are doing is showing still signs of growth, and the tops that have appeared are looking nice, green and healthy. So in all honesty, I'm not too worried. This is one of my favourite beds. I've got an A-frame of ambassador peas, a really nice variety that work every single year. These are just coming into flower, so they're behind the Hanover peas, and they're behind the Kelvedon Wonder peas, which grow slightly shorter than these. I've got kohlrabi at the front, purple delicacy. You can see that I've also planted a marigold in the corner. I'm just trying to, wherever possible in corners, I'm trying to grow as many flowers as possible. There's another marigold here. Then I've got some more beetroot because it's such a staple. And then in the front of me here, I've got a load of kind of bright lights and perpetual spinach, Swiss chard, all mixed together. You can see how nice these leaves are looking, and the stems. And I'm about to start another batch because I'm going to go through and start harvesting these quite intensely, and I'm really looking forward. Today will be the first proper harvest of these, and there is a ton of food right in front of me here. This bed is the main onion bed. They're looking nice and healthy. A couple of them have had flower heads on top, which isn't a good sign, but again, it's because of just the amount of dry weather we've had. It's ridiculous. This bed is really nicely mulched with a good compost, and there's only so much water that organic matter and compost can hold, especially if something is growing. So again, more watering is needed. At the top, I've got dill that is growing, and then some parsley. These are both looking really nice, and then a little cash crop of radish in the front. This sweet peas, I adore sweet peas. They're kind of perhaps the only ornamental crop that I actively grow a lot of. These are starting to really shoot up this wigwam, and they're going to be such a nice colour. I've got various different herbs planted about, including some caraway. I've never grown caraway before, so I'm curious to see how those are going to turn out. And I've got a load of shallots in front of me here. These are going to be perfect. I'm really excited. They're developing well. I'm really excited to make a load of really nice rich sauces over autumn and winter to help keep me nice and warm. And then in the front, I've got more onions that are kind of interplanted in terms of rows with carrots, and those are really starting to come on well. Behind me here, I've got some blueberry plants that are looking really nice, cropping well, and I can't wait to eat those. Then I've got a little kind of narrow bed here that I just usually dedicate to ornamentals or anything spare. So I've got some garlic in there, but I'm also growing things like lilies for the first ever time, just to see how those cope. Then this is a parsley in its second year. I'm going to let it flower and save the parsley seeds that I can just use in cooking over winter. Got a globe artichoke that's starting to develop, and then this is a main brassica seed bed. All the seedlings are now coming up well. I've already started using some of the Aztec broccoli. I've got everything here from purple sprouting broccoli to 7 different varieties of kale, various different cabbages, Brussels sprouts, the whole entire lot. And then right at the end, some more mange too, because as you can see, I love peas. I did a poll recently on YouTube and I asked, what is your favourite homegrown produce? Is it homegrown tomatoes or is it peas? I was very curious. I thought tomatoes would win like 90%, but turns out it's around 2/3 tomatoes and 1/3 peas. So fair play to peas. I am really happy right now because if there's one highlight at the moment, it's looking at this bed, and amongst all these leaves, I am seeing a lot of red strawberries. Because look at this. Just picking tons of strawberries almost everywhere I look in here, and I cannot wait to eat these. Now I am netting these because even though I do agree with sharing some surplus crop with your local wildlife population, I'm sorry, but to the blackbirds, they are not getting any of my precious strawberries. This is the 4x4 foot raised bed. This crop here is Amaranth. I've seen other people grow it and it looks amazing with the kind of fiery red seed heads, and I want it. But the great thing about Amaranth as well is that these smaller leaves are also edible. They look absolutely stunning, a nice addition to a salad if you want to add some colour. And then on the corner here, I'm growing something else that I haven't grown before, which is spaghetti squash. I've seen Liz Zorab grow these outside in Wales successfully. She says something like, I don't know, 15 to 20 fruits per plant. And so I'm growing a lot of those because they also store pretty well, and spaghetti squash make a really nice salad. Yet another thing that I'm growing that's different this year is not broad beans, but these are field beans. So my local health food shop have their own garden, and last year I saw them grow field beans super successfully. And I've seen a lot of people say that even though they're smaller pods, they're actually a lot more productive than broad beans. So I was like, I have to get in on this, I have to give it a go. So these are looking really nice and healthy. I can't actually see any sign of black fly on this, so it'll be interesting to see the comparison of field beans with dwarf beans. But I've got my hopes up, so I hope I don't get disappointed. Then in the front, just some extra garlic, some golden beetroot have been transplanted, multi-sown. And then here, I've got some celery. I actually brought these as tiny little celery plants, and they're all starting to develop well. I'm actually actively making sure that these are watered well, because if you want a good celery crop, they need a lot of water. You don't want them to dry out. One on the corner got slugged, but it's looking a lot better. Slug damage has been almost non-existent this year. I think kind of helped perhaps by the drier weather, but there is a lot of moisture in a lot of the leaves. So if I was a slug, I'd always just be hiding in kind of the Swiss chard or the lettuce patches, but I just can't see any. So that's a really good thing. And finally, I've got another row of ambassador peas. These are probably 2 or 3 weeks behind the other rows. And then at the corner there, at the end of the bed, I've just done a bit of an experimental polyculture where, again, using any spare seedlings, I'm putting them in, trying different spaces just to see how they each grow with one another. So I've got some broad beans at the end with peas kind of climbing up them. I've got shallots, I've got various different, I've got fennel, lots of different things, and this is kind of my biggest passion in the garden, is just throwing some things together and seeing what happens. My favourite part by far is this grapevine. Now the last 2 years, before this season, it'd been hit by frost, even though it was protected and it had a right setback. But now look at it, it is going all the way to the bottom of the solar tunnel, and my dad is starting to train it back, and we've got loads of grapes developing. So that is a really exciting thing. We're going to do the same in a polycrop, but I'll show you that later on. And then here we've got sweet corn interplanted with dwarf French beans, not runner beans. And then, as you can see, tomatoes. These have just been tied up and they're already starting to have the first flowers. This has been an absolute lifesaver, investing in some IBC tanks, because we're very fortunate to have a stream, and even though the stream has basically run dry, but we keep these topped up whenever we do have some rainfall, and at the moment there's about 4,500 litres of water here. So we have no other form of water. The stream is connected to the spring that we use, and we're not on mains, so water isn't a luxury during prolonged periods of dry weather. Now, one of perhaps my favourite thing to do in the garden, it's a great bit of fun, is to grow runner beans up these IBC tanks. They're effectively ready-made trellises, so it makes perfect sense. Any kind of climbing bean or peas, a great thing to grow up these. So we've got 4 plants here, 2 in each tub, and then we've got some plants over on the other side. And just in a matter of weeks, these are going to be covered, and I cannot wait to share that with you. We're here in the polycrop, by far my favourite space, but it's a space that I can only truly enjoy early in the morning or later on in the evening, because it gets so hot, but the plants in here love it. The first thing that we planted, because at the start of the season we actually still had the chickens in here because of bird flu, so we couldn't actually get around to planting anything as early as I would have liked. But we did put in these carrots. The prime reason was for making fermented carrot juice as a high calcium liquid feed when watering the tomatoes. It's just copying the exact same method when making a nettle fermented plant juice. So you can watch this video to find out more about that. But these carrots I've been growing really nicely after thinning them out. So we thinned them out so we could have some kind of micro carrots and use the tops for the fermented plant juice. But you can see these are developing nicely, and just got to keep these watered, and I'm looking forward to harvesting these when they're nice and big in a couple of months' time. So here are the Hanover peas that we've been harvesting now for around about a week. It's still very early stages, but it's laden with pods and they're looking really great. You can see that this place is just sprawling with nasturtiums. I haven't planted a single one. This is just self-sown. I just think it looks absolutely stunning in here. Now, my colleague Sam has made a really nice recipe using new potatoes and peas and nasturtiums, and it's really nice because we actually had the potatoes in the containers right in this bed to begin with at the start of the season, and it's really nice to have a recipe almost in ode of that partnership of the nasturtiums, the peas and the potatoes. So if you want to give it a go, as you can see on screen, it looks absolutely stunning. There'll be a link down below in the description. Now, the main reason why I love undercover growing spaces are, of course, tomatoes. I think we got about 55 plants in here. I've just put up the trellis system, which was in the previous video, and they're growing so quickly that I have to come through and do another harvest because the suckers are turning pretty big, you know. That is a big sucker. So that's going to be the job for this afternoon, to come through, prune these and then tie them around more using that kind of spiral staircase method. And yeah, they're going to turn into triffids. They're looking awesome already. So in the far end of the polycrop, we've got a load of cucumbers, and then I'm also growing other things like sweet corn and peppers. And this was the initial herb bed just for those early harvests of dill, coriander, and also chervil. They're starting to go over, as you can see, but I can still harvest from them. And the coriander are just starting to flower, so I'll let those set seed. Then, of course, more tomatoes. These have already been pruned, and these are looking really nice. And then this pyramid structure here started off as 4 cucumbers. The 2 on the end just died instantly, but these 2 are looking really good. I've got to train them up. But it's kind of good that these cucumbers on the end died, because it meant that we had space to put in this grapevine. And hopefully in 8 years' time, or perhaps sooner, the grapevine will have grown all the way down the length of the polycrop and all the way back. And I think that's going to be such a magical feature, to walk in, see tomatoes, see cucumbers, and see just grapes drooping down. So there you have kind of an overview of how the garden is looking. I have to say it's been a really, really weird growing season. April has been super dry, May was super cold, and the whole garden is around 2 or 3 weeks, and in some places 4 weeks behind where it was this time last year. But I can't complain. I'm pleased with the progress. I just can't wait for perhaps 2 or 3 weeks time from now, when the whole garden is completely filled. Really excited for that. So hopefully you found it interesting. If you have any comments about anything in particular, please don't hesitate to leave them down below in the comment section. Give this video a thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.